he wanted to check if these American soldiers would also be susceptible to re-education. So they really did a formal, 3-part re-education program on them. And men had many different responses to it. But when West met them, he studied many of the returning men when they came back to Lackland Air Force Base, and he extracted those three components of what had happened to them, DDD, and that's the way he became an expert on what he called brainwashing or coercive persuasion.
So how do they go from that to like sponsoring the Manson family and Operation Midnight Climax and all the crazy stuff that they were doing?
Yeah, it may seem like a leap, but I think
sort of.
It's sort of a leap, but it's sort of not. I think that MKUltra was funded around in direct response to this crisis of the POWs, and in addition to reverse engineering what had happened to them, they also wanted to turn it into a weapon and continue certain programs in interrogation procedures and making them more effective. So MKUltra just had a wide reach, and it was pretty free reign. It was a free reign program, and the historian Alfred McCoy says it was modeled on the Los Alamos in a way, a kind of Manhattan Project for the mind. So just as the atom had been disassembled and transformed into this new world had emerged from that program, that intensive exertion of scientific acumen, the same thing could be done with the mind. The mind could be sort of pulled apart, and human consciousness and functioning could be people could be broken down and rebuilt.
Were they trying to optimize the use of the mind to their advantage? Like, what was the end goal that they were trying to do with this?
A couple of things. I think one idea was it potentially could be a weapon. One goal. Another, so it could be used on an enemy, perhaps even a city. So that's one reason they were researching LSD. It had certain properties that made it could be easily dispensed to an entire population through the water supply. So they wanted to know what exactly are the properties of LSD. People didn't really know at the time. So there was an offensive part of it. There's also a defensive part. So U.S. military needed to be trained to resist whatever this was. Once they understood it, they developed the SEER training, and West was involved in that as well. And then a third thing was maybe a broader curiosity about, which would lead you to be able to interrogate people better, and perhaps also to, just really understand. I think there was also kind of a curiosity about what would happen. I think because they had so much power to experiment in a way without any oversight. And it wasn't until 1963 that the Inspector General of the CIA himself said, this is unethical, and we've done it. Basically put a stop to it. But it really was
63.
Yeah.
But it went on. I mean, the Harvard LSD studies. When were those?
I don't know which ones exactly. There are some that were earlier.
What are the ones that made Ted Kaczynski?
Okay, that's earlier.
Was that earlier than 63?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Henry Murray. Yeah. But so I don't actually know the answer to that question of exactly how it continued, but they officially discontinued and destroyed all the records. So they may have continued under other forms.
But Manson was 69?
Yeah, so Manson is after that.
So they didn't discontinue it. They kept doing things.
Well, West kept working.
Yeah. It's ironic because it seems like they were kind of a cult. Because the amount of power, the amount of unchecked power and influence that Jolly West had and MKUltra in general had, and all the people that were working on this, you have this power, the fact that you are working in complete secrecy, you are the puppeteer, you're controlling all these people, and then this idea that have you read Chaos, the Tom O'Neill book?
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
I thought it was great research.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a
Amazing
really good book.
And just so stunning.
Yeah.
I had never considered that before. I thought Manson was a crazy guy and he got together with a bunch of crazy people and he ran a cult. I had no suspicion that the government was involved in orchestrating the entire
Well,
thing.
they may not have been. I don't think Tom O'Neill thinks that he made an absolute link. He just you do get West in the same room, potentially the
You
same.
get West visiting Manson in jail.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, West visited Manson in jail.
Mm-hmm.
West, he believes, at least Tom O'Neill does, supplied him with LSD, and then every time Manson would get arrested, he would get released.
This is true, but this wasn't West necessarily. This was Roger Smith, who was West. He was an associate of West, and West was head of the methamphetamine research project or things like that. Which was West got funding to do his hippie lab, or his psycho lab or psyche lab in 67 and 68 during his sabbatical in the Bay Area, and it wasn't obviously funded by this. If it was funded by the CIA, it was clandestine, but there are many notes that Tom O'Neill also writes about. So both of us have gone to the West papers over many, many years, and I think you can put West at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic where he had an office and where Manson would go for medical treatment, and he would take his girls in to be treated, his women, his cult. And they were, at the time, as I understand it, seen as a kind of a model cult, and many of the researchers under West, we can prove that link, that people like Alan Rose, who was a sociologist, they were trying to do an ethnographic study of cults. Mm-hmm. And what is the natural environment? How do they create bonds? And what is their relationship to American society and to drug use and things like that? So West would apparently hang out on the couch, getting high and wearing, kind of dressed up in hippie garb, with his middle-aged friends. And these graduate students and an undergraduate who he hired would be writing in their journals about how irritating he was. But sometimes it seems like it wasn't very targeted, and it wasn't very efficient, and it wasn't really there didn't appear to be a plan, which isn't to say. So to me, it's not entirely clear what the relationship was with Manson. It is very evident he was bailed out several times by Roger Smith, who was also a psychologist as well as a parole officer. So that's highly suspicious. And Roger Smith did know West. And Dave Smith, who was the head of the medical clinic, also knew West. But these things it's hard to tell exactly